Welcome to Scribecast, the podcast for the Heritage Foundation's Center for Media and Public Policy. I'm Lachlan Marquet.
And I'm Rob Bluey. Today we're joined in our Robert H. Bruce radio studio by talk show host Neal Boortz. His show is broadcast on News Talk 750 WSB and heard by about 6 million listeners nationwide on around 230 radio stations. Neal, thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. Thank you for letting me use your studio for the show today.
Well, we appreciate you being here in our studio. So how is it doing the show in Washington, D.C.?
Place gives me the creeps. I mean, the Heritage Foundation doesn't give me the creeps, but the city gives me. I started coming to Washington, D.C. in the early 50s, before you all were even thought about, because my aunt, the old dowager, she worked at the USO over at Union Station. So I'd come hang out with her, and I'd get bored at Union Station, so I'd walk over to the Capitol. I'd wander around the Capitol, which you can't do anymore. But I came to know Washington as a symbol of freedom, of liberty, of all that made this country great. And now when I come to the city, I see these people walking on the sidewalks in this. I think, yeah, what cubicle are you going to sit in today? What stupid, absurd, asinine regulations to control the people are you going to come up with today to impress your boss? I hate it, but this city is becoming a symbol of oppression, not a symbol of liberty.
So you've been doing radio since 1969.
Actually 65, started in college.
So what keeps you going for all those years?
No heavy lifting, and all the tape you can eat. Of course, they don't have tape anymore. It's just, hey, it's like I've never worked. But now I'm also a lawyer, and when I was practicing law and doing the radio show, the law was the hard-working, disagreeable time of the day, and radio is always a refuge. I just love it.
Well, not only have you created a successful following in radio, but you also have an impressive website with Boortz.com. Can you tell us about your online following and how that's changed media and your impression in terms of your work on radio?
Well, I started Boortz.com long before the mothership, which is my flagship radio station, WSB, even had a website. I started Boortz.com because the people at an internet service provider called MindSpring, and you barely hear about them. I don't know, maybe they gave me some bandwidth. They said, hey, do what you want with it. And I got a Windows program. I can't even think of the name of the Windows program anymore. But it was a Windows program where you could publish. You set up a page and publish it to the internet. So I just started writing program notes and published it on Boortz.com, and I would hide Easter eggs all over the website. Now, the way I did that, I don't know how to do it now anymore, but I would have this big cartoon caricature of me and the other people in the studio, and you'd move the cursor around, and every once in a while it would turn into a hand. Oh, there's something hidden here. And they would click on it, and, some of the stuff that would pop up probably wouldn't fly all that well today. But it built so many followers that finally Cox Interactive, part of Cox Enterprises, said, look, we'll buy it from you. You provide content. We'll sell advertising and split revenues with you. I said, fine, sure. I'm easy to get along with. The funny thing is that a couple of years ago, my stupid little website made more money than the Atlanta Journal-Constitution newspaper.
Wow.
With two people running it. The AJC, how many hundreds of people work there? And I made more money for Cox Enterprises with two people than the AJC made with, 500?
And that really speaks to my next question, which was, Americans are really increasingly seeking out their news from places that speak to their views and preferences. So whether it's online and talk radio, of course, is a great example. So, what does that say about the state of the news media? And do you think it's going to be a healthy phenomenon in the long run?
No, I don't think it's healthy. I always tell my listeners, I try to tell them a couple of times a day, okay? Don't believe anything you hear me say on the radio or anything you read in my program notes on the internet unless it's consistent with what you already know is true or you've taken the time to verify it for yourself. And the reason I tell my listeners, I'm in the entertainment business and I'll flat out lie to them if I have to be entertaining. Don't get your news from one source. I like the Weekly Standard. I like the Heritage Foundation. I like to go to Cato to get a libertarian point of view. I go to the Washington Post to get a liberal point of view. You have to sample all of it. You have to find out how the other side is thinking, what their thought processes are. If you don't, then if you're not aware of what the other side is thinking, how their news is being reported, what information they're absorbing and disseminating, then you're going to whistle past the graveyard to your everlasting sorrow someday.
You describe yourself as a libertarian.
Yeah, I'm much more libertarian.
So
yeah.
How did you come to those views?
I've had an interesting journey. When I was in college, I was Students for a Democratic Society.
Wow.
I was left-wing, screaming, marching, waving signs and placards and stuff like that. But then I started realizing that I just could not win arguments with people who knew what they were talking about. And I said, there's no reason why you don't listen to them and give their ideas serious thought and consideration. And as I did, my philosophy started to gravitate toward a pretty doctrinaire conservative. And then by that time, I was in talk radio, and callers and their arguments over a course of 2 decades kind of steered me into a more libertarian point of view. I am so libertarian now, I don't even think the doctor should license, or the government should license doctors and lawyers. And I'm a lawyer. But I don't know if either one of you are a lawyer.
No.
But if I want to come to you to write me a will, if you want to write it and I want you to write it, then in a free society, that should be legal, and I should pay you for your efforts. So that's how far to the libertarian side I go.
One of the issues you talk about is taxes. It seems like everybody these days is talking about taxes, from the president on down to Congress. Do you think that we're ever going to get to a point where we can have real substantive tax reform in this country?
We won't survive if we don't. I mean, Caesar Obamas is using our tax code right now not as a legitimate instrument for collecting the revenues needed for the necessary and legal functions of government. He's using it as a political weapon. And if the government uses its police power to collect, to seize money from the citizens, if that is used as a political weapon, then the republic cannot survive that. And Obama has raised that to an art form. He's using the tax code, or wants to correct what he thinks are injustices in the free market economy. These people shouldn't have been allowed to earn that much. These people deserve more. I'm going to use the tax code to seize from this group and give to that. Which, by the way, is pretty cleanly outlined in the Communist Manifesto, if I could just add that.
So you're referring, of course, to the Buffett rule there?
Buffett rule is part of it.
Yeah.
Capital gains taxes are part of it. The Buffett rule is a thinly disguised attempt to double capital gains taxes. And remember, and I keep forgetting, was this Charlie Rose or Charlie Gibson? But the famous conversation that Obama had with, I think it was Charlie Gibson. Well, Mr. President, if you raise capital gains taxes, you realize that every time that's been done, it's resulted in a decrease of revenues to the federal government. And Obama says, yeah, I realize that, but for me, it's just an issue of fairness. In other words, the government's not going to get any money out of it. It's just unfair that he has it and he doesn't. So I'm going to take it from him and give it to him. That's no way to steer a ship.
Heritage has come out with a tax reform proposal based on a flat tax. You like the fair tax. Why do you favor fair over flat?
Well, because we've tried flat before. It was tried in 1986. It was flat with 3 flat tax rates, but it was, that was supposed to, they got rid of the deductions. Here's your 3 flat tax rates. They got rid of virtually every deduction except home mortgage interest. And it's been amended and modified 13,000 times since then. Okay? Now, under the fair tax, consumption tax, under the fair tax, first of all, it is the most thoroughly and completely researched piece of legislation ever placed in front of the Congress in the history of this country. You cannot name me another piece of legislation with $22 or $23 million of intense research behind it. Places like Harvard and Princeton, okay? Second of all, everybody I talk to agrees with this basic premise. Nobody should ever pay 1 penny of their earnings to the federal government until they have taken care of the basic needs of themselves and their family. You take care of your family's basic needs first, then you can fund the government. The only tax plan that accomplishes that is the fair tax.
Neal Boortz, thank you so much for joining us on Scribecast. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. Appreciate it.
For the Heritage Foundation, I'm Rob Bluey.
And I'm Lachlan Marquet, and make sure you tune in next week. For more Heritage podcasts, please visit heritage.org/podcasts.